Welcome to the Iron Self podcast, where we jump into health, fitness, mindset, and becoming the best version of yourself. Today with your hosts, Mike and Kayla Minion.
Welcome to This Week in Coaching, guys. We are, what's the date today? August 29th, almost the start of September. Holy September
and
long.
our kids are back to school tomorrow.
Yeah,
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy to think that we are already coming into fall. We're moving into fall. This is This Week in Coaching. So what are we here to talk about today?
Well, we have a couple different ideas. So the one that I wanted to talk about today is, everybody has, we'll call them the inevitable setbacks within their training, whether it's a training injury, whether it's maybe an injury that happened outside of the gym or outside of your training, but you have an injury or you have something happen to you in your life that might set back your physical goals a little bit. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, and then I believe you had another thing.
Yeah, so let's just jump into that first, because, it's all about adapting ourselves to our life situations, right? And so whether we have a setback or maybe the plans for the day don't go according to plan, especially when we are jumping back into September and routine and life, that maybe it was a little bit discombobulated over the summer.
Discombobulated.
Trying to use big words these days. I sound smarter.
Oh boy.
Can you know I sound smarter when I use big words?
Sure.
I don't think you sound smarter though when you say discombobulate.
It's discombobulated.
Anyways, so adapting to life's situations. So how do we maneuver these?
Mm-hmm. So I guess the big thing is identifying them to start with, right? So sometimes it's not as obvious as like, ooh, I've injured myself, right? Like, yeah, if you pull a muscle, if you break a bone, if you have something very obvious, that's an easy one. It's like, okay, I need to take a little bit of time off. But what happens when maybe let's look at it from a different point of view and we say, we've been training hard for however long we've been training, and maybe we're starting to plateau. Maybe we're feeling like our energy levels are never getting back up to where they should be to be able to get that full workout in. So how do we adapt to that? How do we shift and kind of maneuver so that we can keep our training going or keep working towards our goals?
So part of that might be that we need to change up our training program, the style of training. Maybe we need to take a deload week. Maybe we need to change up our nutrition. Maybe we're not getting enough carbohydrates or enough fats for the exercise demand that we're asking of our bodies. So there's lots of different things there. Maybe we need to add in some sort of supplementation. Maybe we've got some nutritional deficiencies or something to help our body heal better. There's lots of different things that we can add in.
Yeah, I love that you went to nutrition. That's where I wanted to start too. One of the first things that I always kind of look at for people when they're having ridiculously low energy, what do your eating habits look like? What are you fueling your body with? Because if you're eating nothing but, ding-dongs and ho-hos, chances are you're going to run out of energy pretty quick, right? There's not a sustainable source of energy available for you. So looking at our diet to begin with and seeing, hey, maybe if we just tweak our diet a little bit, we'll be able to increase the amount of energy we have. Likewise, if we have a training injury, making sure that we are eating enough in I'm going to go ahead and say in a calorie surplus when we are recovering from an injury.
Or at least at maintenance.
Maintenance or a surplus. I always say a little bit of a surplus is better than maintenance for recovery because our body needs more energy to heal, right? So if our body has a break, a tear, any type of injury, in order for our body to have the available energy stores to heal that injury, we need to be eating at maintenance or preferably in a little bit of a surplus. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. They're like, but I was told if I go in a surplus, I'm going to gain weight. This is why I said a little bit, right? We just need to be a little bit over our calculated maintenance so that our body has additional energy, additional resources to be able to rest and repair for
maybe even
that injury.
50 calories.
Doesn't
maybe
take
100
much.
calories. Doesn't have to be very much to help our body recover and repair, but just a little bit of a surplus so that our body doesn't feel like it's fighting itself.
Yeah, so that's where I want to start, was definitely the nutrition. Anytime you have an injury, a setback, or if you are struggling in your workouts to be able to keep progressing that workout, starting with nutrition, taking a good look at it and saying, am I getting enough carbohydrates? I know a lot of people are afraid of carbohydrates. It's absolute bullshit. There's no reason to be afraid of carbohydrates. They are literally the energy exchange for your body. So if you want to have more energy, eat more carbohydrates.
Or fats.
Or fats, depending on your energy system. If you are an endurance runner, eat all the fats you want because guess what? Your body is fueled when you go above 15 minutes, let's call it, of activity by your fats. So depending on what you're doing, looking at that nutrition is definitely going to help. Now, outside of nutrition, another thing that Kayla was alluding to, again, if you're plateauing on your lifts, if you're having a hard time progressing, maybe you've been pushing too hard for too long. So generally, most training programs, so that we don't hit that stage of overreaching, so that we're not pushing ourselves so hard that we push ourselves into a corner and you can't really progress anymore, making sure you do take some weeks where we go a little bit easier on ourselves, or your body perceives it as a rest. It doesn't necessarily have to be more of a rest, but you need to more or less trick your body into the perception of rest. So the way that I like to do this for our clients is scheduling a deload week. So
yeah, it could be a deload week, but what if it's not a deload week?
It could just be a reduced set.
It could be a reduced sets. It could be maybe that's your week that you're taking vacation, and so instead you're going to sit poolside and
sit poolside with my time.
Do some stretching. Maybe you go for a walk, but you take a little bit of time for ease.
Yeah.
Allowing that ease into the body.
Yeah, 100%. And realistically, taking a week off of training isn't the most terrifying thing. Now, if you are somebody like this beautiful woman, who is going to a stage, going to competition, taking a week off can definitely set you back a little bit. But if you are general health, if you are weight loss, or if you are just somebody that's looking to put on mass, taking a week off training can actually be beneficial to you. Because if you've been pushing yourself like crazy, then your body needs that rest. Without that rest, you're never going to be able to get to that next stage. So giving yourself enough time to actually be able to rest, recover, and then come back and try those lifts again is a great way to do it.
It's true. And I mean, we don't necessarily even have to take a week off. Maybe you're like me and you're going to like totally get into the stinking thinking if you take a week off. But maybe you just change up the way you're training. Maybe you were going really, really heavy before, and maybe you take a lighter week. Or maybe you were going a little lighter before and you decide, hey, I'm going to try a week of something different. I'm going to do some Zumba. I'm going to,
Zumba.
do a YouTube video. I don't know what it is, but just trying to change it up. But when we're talking about adapting to life situations, it can be anything from injury, like Mike's talking about, to overtraining, overreaching. And this is
stress.
It could be stress. Maybe we need to allow ourselves some time away from stress. So whether stress is caused from work or life, it can also be caused from our workouts. Also be caused mentally from beating ourselves up for not meeting our workouts perfectly, not meeting our nutrition perfectly, whatever our idea of perfection, quote unquote, is. And that's that black and white thinking. So sometimes we just need to loosen the reins a little bit, live a little bit more in the gray, and establish, how can I let this go without completely letting it go? Can I release it just a tiny bit so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming? So maybe you've got 45 minutes of workouts, and instead of a 45-minute workout for 3 sets of everything, maybe you're doing 2 sets of everything. Maybe you've shortened your rest time so that it's more of an intense workout and you're getting it done faster. There's lots of different ways that we can change it up so that it's not so overwhelming that you don't create essentially a mountain out of a molehill. I can't do this. It's an all or nothing mentality, and into I can do 1 set and I'll be happy with that. It's something. Something is better than nothing, because when we adapt to life situations, it's about being 1% better. So what can I do that is slightly better than maybe what I used to do? So maybe I used to go, I don't have time to do the whole workout, so I'm going to do none of it. And maybe instead now I will go for a walk because I do have time for a 20-minute walk.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to point out there is if we are injured, if we are taking that little bit of a break for ourselves, that doesn't mean all progress has to stop. So this is one big sticking point for me when I've been injured before. And this is me personally. So I am a trainer. This is what I do for a living. But I've been in the points in my past where I get a decent injury. Like I've had some pretty bad back injuries over my life, so let's just go with a back. I have a back injury, let's say. Now my option is, I do nothing. I let it recover, I start doing my old physio stuff, and I can get back to working out within 3 to 4 weeks, however that looks. Or maybe I look at progressing different aspects of my life at that point, right? I know I can't physically work on the training aspect of it, so maybe I'm working on the mindset aspect of it. Maybe I'm working to understand how I tick on the inside a little bit better, right? Maybe I'm working on my nutrition. Maybe because I can't physically work out, I want to eat in that little bit of a surplus that I was talking about so that my body gets that recovery. So maybe that means if I can't physically train, I am so on point with my nutrition, it is down to the gram. Like, it is freaking perfect, right? Or maybe that just means I'm going to invest in myself a little bit. So maybe that means I'm going to be reading more. Maybe I'm going to be learning something that I've been interested in learning but haven't had the time to do. And now that I'm injured or not able to do what I was doing before, I have the time to do that. So again, looking at which aspects of your life you can still progress in. Maybe it's not your training. Maybe it has nothing to do with your training. But it doesn't mean that just because we're injured, sick, tired, whatever it is, that we're just going to take that time off. Because this life, this world that we're in, is all about progression. It's all about how can I get myself to the next level? What is the next version of myself that is that much stronger, faster, better, smarter, whatever it is. So being able to take that time that would have been time off and being able to utilize that to improve on myself in some way is a win every day.
If you're ready to make a change in your life, step into the best version of you, check out our Iron Self Transformation Program. Find more info on our website, www.ironbodycoach.com.
One of the best things you can do for that, and I should add in, any investment in yourself is the best investment you can make. But one of the things you can do is do some journaling. Maybe, and I like to do question journaling. Like, I'm not a Dear Diary, today this happened. That's not me. Maybe it was when I was 13, 14.
Taking a look back.
Yeah, don't go back through those journals. I wonder what they would say. But anyways.
I can't wait to meet my husband, Mike. He's so handsome.
That's exactly what it said.
Yeah.
No, but it's more of okay, so maybe I'm really struggling with my self-esteem. And so why do I struggle with self-esteem might be the first question I ask myself. And then you're kind of well, duh, because I'm not good enough. Obviously. You write down what it is. And then you just begin to question that. Okay, well, why do I feel this way? What about myself makes me feel not good enough? Whatever it is. But from there, it's just constantly asking what, why, how. Maybe even sometimes when. I feel like I got a tickle in my throat.
Oh, there's a tickle. So yeah, I absolutely love that too. Journaling is one of my favorite things to recommend to people if they are having a hard time sleeping. I just want to throw that out there. My daughter was having a hard time sleeping 2 nights ago. You know, that anticipation of going back to school, what's it going to be like? All these thoughts are going through her head. And I'm just using her as an example. This works for everybody. When we start to worry about the mortgage payment and how we're going to make groceries work next week, whatever it is, we all worry about these things. So taking a little bit of time to journal allows it to kind of get out of your brain and onto some paper. And when you start to see it on paper, maybe it doesn't look so scary, right? And like Kayla's saying, if you're maybe somebody that has struggled with self-esteem or whatever it is, maybe once you put it on paper, it starts to almost feel a bit silly. And you're like, well, that's not very valid and true. I'm actually a pretty freaking awesome person. So me writing this, just even in writing it, you're like, got something I can work on there.
Well, I do, and that's one thing. Like I said, I kind of journal when the spirit moves me. I'm not a daily journaler.
It's like running.
Yeah,
0 times this year for this one.
I've run 0 times. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not
damn impressive.
It's my girl. But yes, okay. Anyways, when you are journaling, sometimes you come up with things that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to get outside yourself or outside your head for. So I know for myself, one of the biggest things that I was struggling with was, I have a really hard time making friends. And, I get told from this one that it's because I have a strong personality. But anyways.
It's not the words I use.
I was trying to figure that out. So I was doing some journaling about, maybe some situations in my life where I've really, had really good friend groups. What happened to that? And I actually was able to boil all of my, I'm going to call them issues.
Friendsiety,
yeah. Back to a childhood moment when I got jumped and I got beat up, and there was a whole array of things that took place in this moment, but it was that moment that I started to struggle with friendships. And so when I was able to establish that through my journaling process, I had this mind blown moment where how Mike's saying journal before you go to bed because it's super helpful for sleep. I was mind blown, and I'm like, huh, you mean I missed out on all these years and blah, blah, blah because of this one thing? And so for me, it was like this mind-blown moment of, like, now I'm going to lay awake and try and work myself backwards from this as to what happened. But the point being is that sometimes journaling can be really, really beneficial in helping you navigate things that you didn't think that were even an issue or even related to something that you're working with.
Perfect.
Okay, so giving credit where credit is due was the other thing that we wanted to touch on today.
How often do you high-five yourself?
Yes.
Right? How often do you give yourself a pat on the back? Great job, right?
Or high-five others when you see somebody doing something good.
Woo! So this is a huge problem with, I'm going to go ahead and call it out. This is a huge problem with our society. First thing, we don't like it when we get celebrated.
We also don't like compliments. Like
people get
awkward.
a little uncomfortable and awkward if you compliment them, or if you
make eye contact.
but it's true, right? So give somebody a compliment. Give somebody that did something awesome a compliment, and watch the wheels turn in their head. They're immediately, the first response lots of times is defense. They're like, what did I do wrong? It's like, no, I'm actually giving you like a pat on the back. Like, hell yeah, good job, way to go. But most people take it as like, what did I do wrong? To start. And then once they realize that maybe they didn't do anything wrong, then they start to kind of discredit themselves. And they're like, okay, well, yeah, I did that thing, I did okay, but I could have done it better. I could have done this, I could have done that. And they started shooting all over themselves and saying how they could have done something better, instead of just saying, you know what, that's true, I did really well, I did awesome at that, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. So giving credit where credit is due means literally celebrating your wins.
And even if you don't necessarily think it's a win, I want you to try and think about, like, pulling out of it what about it could be a win. So we'll give you an example, is that we had a client that went away on vacation, and the client didn't stick 100% on track and was, like, super upset with themselves about it. And we were like, okay, but what did you do well? Well, my mindset shifted about this. I paid really close attention to my portion sizes. I paid really close attention to the foods I was eating. I didn't really want to snack on all the snacky things. Like, all of these other things were different. Don't you think that you deserve a little credit for that?
That sounds like a win to me.
Like, nobody asked you to be perfect. Perfection is a fallacy. It's not true. So what did you do that was better than what you used to do? Reflect on that. And then power forward. What would you like to do better next time? Well, maybe next time instead of 18 beers, I'll do 15. That's still better. You know what I mean? Like, give yourself credit for whatever it is that you deserve credit for. Don't discredit yourself. When you celebrate those wins, that's how we build success. Yeah. If every time you had a coaching team, like a sports team, and they always lost, like maybe like the Toronto Maple Leafs or something like that.
Whoa! Get out. Get out. Kayla's no longer here.
But maybe they lose all the time. If you constantly told them what a shitty team they were, they might not ever win.
Punch you in your head.
But if you give them credit, like, hey, I don't know your name.
Good try, Leafs.
Yeah, like, great try. I really liked how you guys got back for defense. Even though you sucked at it, you did really good.
Terrible. Just killing me right now, guys.
Anyways, you guys get the point that I'm trying to make here. That was like a backhanded compliment. It was not meant to be a backhanded compliment. But the point being is that if you constantly berate somebody or tell them about how they need to do better or they should do better, and you don't compliment them for the things that they are doing well and the progression that they are making, then they kind of don't want to make progress anymore. It's kind of like belittling them, and then of course I don't want to do something that makes me feel shitty. Yeah. So constantly focusing on the progress. Mel Robbins has something called the high five habit, and what that is about giving yourself a high five in the mirror, because high fives are camaraderie, they are community, they are a way to make us feel good about ourselves. When somebody gives you a high five, like you get that like feeling of camaraderie, you get that feeling of excitement, like, oh, I did something good. So if you start giving yourself that high five, then you start to create that relationship with yourself, and the better relationship you have with yourself, the better self-worth you have, self-esteem, self-acceptance. I mean, it just trickles down the line, and that is really how we begin to step into a better version of ourselves.
Yeah. And honestly, it's so easy for everybody to fall into this trap of criticizing ourselves, right? Like, everybody is their own biggest critic. I'm my own biggest critic. Kayla's her own biggest critic. Everybody listening right now, you are your own biggest critic. So we need to learn to step away from that mindset of everything I'm doing isn't perfect, because like Kayla said earlier, that perfection idea is a complete fallacy. It's bullshit. Nothing in life is going to be perfect. So making sure that you're very realistic with that, and then saying, yeah, you know what, I'm actually doing really good at this. Maybe I'm not doing perfect, but my intent was never to be perfect. My intent was to do better than I've done before, right? So taking that 1% better approach and making sure that we are celebrating those wins. We are taking the time to really give ourselves a pat on the back. We deserve it.
I want to highlight something that you said there, and maybe we'll kind of end it on this, but I really liked what you said there. It was that we never told ourselves that we were going to do this for perfection. And when Mike said that, the first thing that jumped into my brain was, when we're setting goals for ourselves, we're not going to go like, I want to eat better, more whole foods, 100% perfectly. Like, nobody writes that on the end of their goal. It's like, I want to eat more whole foods consistently. Yeah. Consistently doesn't mean it's perfect. It just means that there's some room, there's a little bit of that ambiguity, and that ambiguity is where we can, slide in the funner things that we want, or make room for the things that we truly enjoy. Because when we have those things that we truly enjoy in moderation, it makes them more exciting, it makes them more enjoyable, it makes us look forward to them. If we have those things that we consistently love and enjoy all the time, it's like monotonous and we don't really look forward to it. We just kind of go through the motions of it. So when you want to bring more joy and excitement into your life, like, thread it in throughout your process, but don't feel like it has to be an all the time thing. Yeah. And that's going to bring more joy. That's really what we're here for. Talk to you guys about joy and love and creating the best life possible. So hopefully you guys got some valuable information out of today's This Week in Coaching, and we will look forward to seeing you next week. Send us on through any questions that you might have, and we'll chat to you guys
for next week in coaching.
Later.
Have a great day, guys.